The champagne glass shattered against the marble floor, sending golden liquid and crystal fragments across my grandmother's imported Italian tiles. My mother stood frozen, her hand still positioned as if holding the stem, her face drained of all color. Across the table, my father had stopped mid-bite, his fork hovering between his plate and his mouth, a piece of prime rib dangling precariously. My name is Justin Torres. I had just turned 21, fresh out of state college with a business degree I had fought tooth and nail to earn through student loans, part-time jobs, and countless sleepless nights. That evening was supposed to be a celebration of my graduation, the first college graduate in my immediate family. Instead, it became the night I discovered that my entire life had been built on a lie worth $850,000. What fund? I repeated, my voice cutting through the sudden silence that had descended upon my grandparents' dining room. My grandfather, Richard Torres, sat at the head of the table like he always did, a king surveying his kingdom. At 78, he was still sharp as a blade, his mind honed by decades of building a real estate empire from nothing. He had been smiling when he asked the question, that proud grandfather smile that I had seen so rarely over the years. Now, that smile was slowly morphing into something else entirely. "The education fund," he said slowly, his eyes moving from me to my parents. "The one I set up when you were born. $850,000 properly invested should have been more than enough for any university in the world. Harvard, Yale, Oxford, wherever you wanted to go." The room felt like all the air had been sucked out of it. My younger sister Emma, 18 and about to start community college, looked as confused as I felt. My grandmother, usually the perfect hostess, had gone very still, her hands folded in her lap. "I don't understand," I said, though a sick feeling was already building in my stomach. "What education fund?" "Richard," my father said, his voice strained. "This isn't the time." "When exactly would be the time, Michael?" My grandfather's voice had lost all warmth. "When should I tell my grandson that the money I set aside for his education, money that could have opened any door in the world for him, seems to have vanished into thin air?" "Dad, please," my mother started, but Grandpa held up his hand. "I called the bank yesterday," he continued, his eyes never leaving my parents' faces. "I wanted to transfer the remaining funds to Justin as a graduation gift. Maybe help with a house down payment or starting a business." Imagine my surprise when they told me the account had been closed 5 years ago. 5 years ago, I would have been 16. The same year my parents had suddenly renovated our entire house, added a pool, bought matching BMWs. The year they told me I would need to start looking into student loans because the economy had affected their ability to pay for college. "You told me you couldn't afford to help with college," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "You said the recession wiped out your savings." "Justin, honey," my mother began, reaching for my hand. I pulled away. $850,000, I said, the number feeling surreal. "You stole $850,000 meant for my education?" "We didn't steal anything," my father said defensively. "We're your parents. We had access to the account. Access that I gave you to manage the money for him, not to spend it on yourselves," Grandpa interrupted. His face had turned red, a vein pulsing in his temple. "Where did it go, Michael?" "Every penny. I want to know where every penny went." "This is a family matter," Dad said, starting to stand. "We should discuss this privately." "Sit down." Grandpa's voice was deadly quiet. "You're not leaving this room until my grandson knows the truth. The whole truth." Dad sat, but his jaw was clenched, his hands fisted on the table. "The cars?" I asked, pieces falling into place. "The renovation? Mom's jewelry? The cruise vacations you took without US? We needed those things. Mom said weakly. For our careers, for networking. You needed a Rolex for networking? Emma spoke for the first time, her voice sharp. You needed a boat. You bought a boat. Grandpa's voice rose. With my grandson's education money, you bought a boat. We sold it, Dad said quickly. Last year we sold it. To cover gambling debts, Mom said quietly, and Dad's head snapped toward her. Linda, shut up. No, she said, tears streaming down her face. No more lies. He deserves to know. Gambling. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor. You gambled with my education fund. Online poker, Mom whispered. Sports betting. Your father thought he could double the money, triple it. He was so sure. How much is left? Grandpa asked. Silence. How much? He roared, and everyone jumped. Nothing, Dad admitted finally. It's all gone. $850,000. Gone, while I had worked 30 hours a week at a warehouse, loading trucks until my back screamed, while I had eaten ramen for months to save money, while I had watched my wealthy classmates study abroad, join fraternities, have experiences I couldn't afford. All that time, there had been money. My money, and they had spent it all. I took out $60,000 in student loans, I said numbly. I worked every weekend, every holiday. I missed spring breaks, missed trips, missed everything, because you told me we couldn't afford it. We were going to tell you, Mom said through her tears, after you graduated, when you had a good job, we were going to pay you back. With what money? Emma demanded. You're behind on the mortgage. You borrowed money from me, your 18-year-old daughter, last month. Money I saved from babysitting. You're behind on the mortgage? Grandpa stood slowly, his age showing in the effort. The mortgage I co-signed for you? The truth was unraveling faster now, like a sweater with a pulled thread. The lifestyle they had maintained, the image of success they had projected, all of it built on stolen money and lies. Justin, Dad said, trying for authority he no longer had, you need to understand, we're your parents. We sacrificed everything for you kids. You sacrificed my future for a lifestyle you couldn't afford, I interrupted. You let me believe I was poor, let me work myself to exhaustion, let me take on debt, while you spent money meant for me. It wasn't just meant for you, Dad argued. We're a family. Family shares. Family doesn't steal from each other and lie about it for 5 years. Grandma spoke for the first time, her usually gentle voice hard as steel. I told Richard not to give you access to that account. I knew what you were, but he believed you'd changed, that becoming parents had made you responsible. We are responsible, Mom protested. You're criminals, Grandpa said flatly. What you did is called embezzlement, fraud, theft. You can't be serious, Dad scoffed. We're family. You wouldn't. I already have, Grandpa said, pulling out his phone. I've scheduled a meeting with my lawyer for tomorrow morning. Justin will be there. We're going to explore every legal option available. You'd send your own son to jail? Mom gasped. You sent my grandson into debt while spending his money on poker games, Grandpa replied. Don't talk to me about family loyalty. I stood there, my whole body shaking, 21 years old, supposedly at the beginning of my adult life, and I had just discovered that the two people I trusted most in the world had betrayed me in the worst possible way. I need to leave, I said. Justin, please. Mom reached for me again. Let us explain. Explain what? I turned on her, years of suppressed frustration exploding. Explain how you looked me in the eye every day for 5 years and lied. Explain how you watched me skip meals to save money while you wore designer clothes bought with funds meant for my education. Explain how you let me believe I wasn't worth investing in while you invested my money in poker games. That's not how it was, Dad said. Then how was it? I demanded. Tell me how stealing $850,000 from your son is anything other than what it looks like. We were going to make it back, he said desperately. The investments, the gambling, it was all to try to make more money for you. Stop lying. I shouted, surprising myself with the volume. Stop lying to me. For once in my life, just stop lying. Emma stood up and came to my side. I'm going with Justin, she said. Emma, you're not part of this, Mom said. Aren't I? Emma asked. Is there a fund for me too that you've stolen? Or was I never worth that investment? There's a fund, Grandma said quietly. Was. Your parents have been drawing from it for 2 years. Emma's face crumpled. How much? Originally, $200,000. And now, $40,000 left. Your grandfather moved it to a trust they can't touch last month when he started getting suspicious. You stole from both of us, Emma said, her voice hollow. You stole our futures. We're your parents. Dad slammed his hand on the table, making everyone jump. We gave you life. We raised you. We deserve. You deserve nothing, I said, my voice cold. You're thieves who happen to have children. That doesn't give you the right to steal from us. Where will you go? Mom asked, panic in her voice. You can't just leave. You live here. Not anymore, I said. I'll figure it out. I've been figuring it out without your help for years anyway. Justin, Grandpa said, standing. You and Emma will stay here tonight. Tomorrow we'll go to the lawyer and then find you both appropriate accommodation. You're not alone in this. We won't be manipulated out of our own children, Dad said, standing to his full height, trying to intimidate. Your children are adults who just discovered their parents are criminals, Grandpa shot back. They're making their own choices. And frankly, Michael, you should be more worried about the criminal charges than about where your kids are staying. Criminal charges? Dad laughed bitterly. You're going to have me arrested? Your own son. I'm going to do whatever Justin wants me to do, Grandpa said, looking at me. It's his money you stole, his future you destroyed, his choice what happens next. All eyes turned to me, 21 years old, 12 hours out of college, and I had to decide whether to send my parents to prison. I need time, I said. I need to think. Of course, Grandpa said. Take all the time you need. This is insane, Dad said, grabbing Mom's arm. We're leaving, and if you two want to destroy this family over money, that's on you. We didn't destroy anything, Emma said. You did. Every dollar you spent, every lie you told, every time you looked us in the eye and pretended to be the parents you weren't. You destroyed this family. We're just refusing to pretend anymore. They left. Dad storming out with Mom trailing behind, still crying. The dining room felt cavernous in their absence. The abandoned graduation dinner like a crime scene. I'm so sorry, Grandma said, coming around the table to hug me. We should have protected you better. You didn't know, I said numbly. We suspected, she admitted. The spending patterns, the excuses, the requests for money. But we wanted to believe they'd changed. We wanted to believe they were being good parents. $850,000, I repeated, still trying to wrap my mind around it. I could have gone anywhere, done anything. You still can, Grandpa said firmly. You graduated despite them, not because of them. You're strong, smart, capable. This setback doesn't define your future, doesn't it? I asked. I'm $60,000 in debt for an education that should have been paid for. I'm years behind where I could have been. You're a survivor, Emma said, taking my hand. We both are, and now we know the truth. That night, lying in my grandparents' guest room, I stared at the ceiling and did math. $850,000, invested properly over 21 years, could have been worth over $2 million. $2 million, stolen by the two people who were supposed to protect me. Emma knocked on my door around midnight. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "Not even close." She sat on the edge of my bed, looking younger than her 18 years. "Did you really not know?" "No idea." "You." "I wondered sometimes why we lived like we had money, but you were always broke. Why they'd tell you to get a job, but Mom would get her nails done every week. It didn't add up, but I thought maybe they were just selfish." "They are selfish. They're also thieves. Are you going to press charges?" I had been thinking about that all night. "What would you do?" "I don't know. There are parents. But, Justin, I was going to go to art school. I had the grades, the portfolio, but they said we couldn't afford it, that I should do 2 years at community college first. There was money for art school." "My money?" "Yeah," I said. "There was." "How do you forgive that?" "I don't know if you do." We sat in silence for a moment before Emma spoke again. "What's going to happen to them if you press charges?" "Grandpa's lawyer will tell us tomorrow, but probably jail time. It's a lot of money. They'll lose everything. They already lost everything. They just used our money to delay facing it." "Are you angry?" "I'm everything. Angry, hurt, betrayed, confused. I feel stupid for not seeing it." "You're not stupid. You trusted your parents. That's what kids are supposed to do." "I'm not a kid anymore." "No," Emma agreed. "Neither of us are. Not after tonight." The next morning, Grandpa and I sat in the office of Harrison Webb, Esquire, a man who looked like he'd been practicing law since before my parents were born. "The situation is clear-cut legally," Harrison said, reviewing the documents Grandpa had provided. "The fund was established in Justin's name, with his parents as custodians until he reached 18. Any use of those funds for purposes other than his education and welfare constitutes breach of fiduciary duty and theft." "What's the statute of limitations?" I asked. "In this state, 6 years for felony theft. The most recent withdrawal was 2 years ago, so well within the time frame. And if I press charges, given the amount, we're looking at felony grand theft. Potential sentences range from 5 to 15 years, depending on various factors. There would also be civil remedies available. You could sue to recover damages." "From what?" I laughed bitterly. "They're broke. They spent it all." "There are assets," Grandpa said. "The house has some equity, the cars, Linda's jewelry. It wouldn't be $850,000, but it would be something. And Emma's fund. The $40,000 remaining is now in a trust. The $200,000 they took, same situation as yours." "So she could press charges too?" "Yes." I sat back in the leather chair, feeling the weight of the decision. "What would you do if it were your parents?" Harrison was quiet for a moment. "I've seen this more times than you'd think. Parents treating their children's funds as personal piggy banks. Most kids don't press charges. They live with the betrayal, the debt, the lost opportunities. And most parents do it again to grandkids, to elderly relatives, to anyone they can, because they learn there are no consequences. You're saying I should press charges. I'm saying that actions without consequences tend to repeat, but it's your decision, Justin. You're the victim here. I need to talk to Emma first, and I want to talk to them one more time. My parents. I want to hear the whole truth." "That's understandable," Harrison said. "But if you do, I recommend recording the conversation. With their knowledge, of course. It could be important later. You think they'll admit it?" "In my experience, when confronted with evidence, most people try to justify rather than deny. Those justifications can be very revealing. That afternoon, I called my parents. Dad answered on the first ring. "Justin, thank God. Your mother hasn't stopped crying. This has all gotten out of hand." "I want to meet," I interrupted. "You, Mom, Emma, and me. No grandparents. I want to hear everything." "Of course, son. Come home and we'll. Not home. Neutral ground. The coffee shop on 5th Street. 1 hour. Justin, this is ridiculous. We're your parents. 1 hour. I repeated and hung up. Emma and I arrived first. I set my phone on the table, recording app ready. You sure about this? Emma asked. I need to know everything. Every lie, every dollar, every justification. I need to understand how they could do this. Our parents arrived 10 minutes late. Mom's eyes swollen from crying. Dad's jaw set in defiance. Before we start, I said, I'm recording this conversation. If you're not okay with that, you can leave now. Recording? Justin, we're your parents, not criminals. You stole $850,000 from me and $200,000 from Emma, I said flatly. That literally makes you criminals. Now, do you consent to being recorded or not? They exchanged glances. Then Dad nodded. Fine. Record it. I started the recording. It's June 15th, 2024. This is Justin Torres, with Emma Torres, Michael Torres, and Linda Torres. Dad, Mom, you've admitted to taking money from education funds Grandpa set up for Emma and me. I want to know everything. When did it start? Mom looked at Dad, who sighed. 6 years ago. You were 15. Emma was 12. I had some business debts. From what? I interrupted. You work for a corporation. What business debts? I had a side business. Real estate investment. It went bad. How bad? 300,000 bad. So you stole from us to cover it? I borrowed, he insisted. I fully intended to pay it back. How? How were you going to pay back $300,000? The market was going to turn around. The properties would appreciate. But they didn't. No, they didn't. I had to sell at a loss. And there were other debts. Gambling debts. Mom added quietly, your father started gambling to try to win back the money. Linda. No, Michael. No more lies. She turned to us. It started with online poker. He was good at it, or thought he was, won some at first. But then he started losing and chasing losses with bigger bets. Using our money, Emma said. Using your money, Mom confirmed. By the time I found out, half of Justin's fund was gone. And you didn't stop him? I asked. I tried, but he convinced me he could win it back. And then... She paused, fresh tears falling. Then I started too. What? Shopping. Spending. I told myself it was for the family, for appearances. We needed to look successful for Michael's job, for networking. But it was addiction, just like his gambling. I couldn't stop. The renovation? Emma asked. My idea. Mom admitted. I thought if we improved the house value, we could sell it, pay back the funds. But the renovation cost more than expected. Because you chose marble countertops and Italian tiles, I said. I remember the arguments with the contractor. We were in so deep by then, Dad said. We thought if we could just maintain appearances a little longer, my promotion would come through, bonuses would cover it. But the promotion never came. I guessed. No. Instead, there were layoffs. I barely kept my job. So you took more. We had to maintain the mortgage, the car payments. On cars bought with stolen money. Justin, please. No, Dad. Call it what it is. You stole from your children. You stole our futures to maintain a lie. We gave you a good life. Dad exploded. Private schools, nice neighborhood, opportunities. Until high school, I pointed out, when suddenly I had to switch to public school because you'd spent the money allocated for my education. Public school was fine. I had to leave Exeter, Dad. I was thriving there, and you pulled me out because you'd gambled away my tuition money. You told me it was because they raised rates. They did raise rates. By 5%. Not enough to matter if you hadn't stolen my fund." Silence fell over the table. Other patrons glanced our way, sensing the tension. "How much did you lose gambling?" Emma asked Dad. He was quiet for a long moment. "Over 3 years, about 400,000. And shopping." She looked at Mom. "I don't know, maybe 200,000. The clothes, the jewelry, the trips. Trips we didn't get to go on." I pointed out. "You told us you were going to conferences." "Some were conferences." "Vegas is not a medical conference destination, Mom. You're a dental hygienist." More silence. "Here's what I don't understand," I said finally. "You watched me work myself to exhaustion, 30 hours a week, while taking full course loads. You watched me eat ramen for months, wear the same clothes for years, miss out on every opportunity that required money, and you never felt guilty enough to stop." "Of course we felt guilty," Mom said. "It ate at us. But not enough to stop stealing." "We couldn't stop," Dad said. "We were in too deep. If we stopped, everything would collapse." "Everything did collapse. It just took longer and hurt more people." "We never meant for this," Mom pleaded. "We love you both." "You love yourselves more," Emma said quietly. "Every choice you made proved that." "That's not true." "Mom, you went to a spa day on my birthday last year. A $300 spa day. You gave me a $20 gift card and went to a spa with money stolen from my college fund." Mom's face crumpled. "And you," Emma turned to Dad, "you bet $5,000 on a football game the same week you told Justin he couldn't afford to go on his senior class trip." "How did you?" "I saw the betting app on your phone. I did the math. $5,000 would have covered his trip 5 times over." "We're sick," Dad said suddenly. "We have addictions. We need help, not persecution." "You need consequences," I said. "Grandpa's right about that." "You're going to have us arrested?" Mom asked, horrified. "I haven't decided yet." "Justin, we're your parents. Who stole my future? Who let me go into debt while sitting on money meant for me? Who chose addiction over their children's well-being?" "We can make it right," Dad said desperately. "We'll get help. We'll get jobs, second jobs. We'll pay you back." "With what? You're broke. Behind on the mortgage Grandpa co-signed. You can't even pay Emma back the $40 you borrowed last month." $40! Emma laughed bitterly. "I thought we were so poor you needed $40 from your teenage daughter. You'd stolen $200,000 from me, but you still took my $40. "We'll sell everything," Mom offered. "The cars, my jewelry, everything." "That might cover 1/10 of what you stole," I calculated. "Maybe. It's a start." "It's nothing. It's an insult. You altered the entire trajectory of my life, put me in massive debt, and you think selling your Rolex makes it right. Then what do you want?" Dad demanded. "You want your pound of flesh. You want to see us in prison." "I want my life back," I said. "I want the opportunities you stole. I want the education I should have had. I want the peace of mind of not having $60,000 in student loans. I want parents I can trust. Can you give me any of that?" They couldn't answer. "I'm done here," I said, stopping the recording. "Emma, I'm done too." We stood to leave. "Wait," Mom called. "Where are you going?" "You're our children." "We're your victims," I corrected. "And we're done being victimized." We left them there, 2 middle-aged people confronting the wreckage of their choices. Back at our grandparents' house, Emma and I sat with them and played the recording. Grandma cried. Grandpa's face grew stonier with each revelation. $400,000 in gambling, he said when it was over. $200,000 in shopping. And they have the audacity to claim they were trying to help you. "They're sick," Grandma said softly. "Addiction is a sickness." "So is greed," Grandpa countered. "So is selfishness. And sickness doesn't excuse theft." "What do you want to do?" Grandma asked us. Emma and I exchanged glances. We talked about it all day, weighing options, considering consequences. I want them to face consequences, I said, but I don't want to be responsible for sending them to prison. So, Grandpa prompted. So we propose a deal. They sign over everything they own to Emma and me. The house equity, the cars, everything. They enter addiction treatment programs that Grandpa will monitor. They get jobs, real jobs, and 50% of their earnings go to restitution until they're 65. And they sign a confession, admitting to everything that we can use if they ever default on the agreement. That's generous, Grandpa said. It's practical, I corrected. They can't pay us back from prison. And despite everything, they're our parents. I don't want them in my life, Emma added. Not until they've proven they've changed. Really changed. Understandable, Grandma said. What about school? Justin, your loans. I'll help with that, Grandpa said immediately. Both of you. It won't be $850,000, but I'll pay off Justin's loans and ensure Emma can attend art school. Grandpa, we can't. You can and you will. I should have protected that money better. This is my responsibility too. It's not your fault they're thieves, Emma said. No, but I trusted them when I shouldn't have. Let me do this. Please. We agreed. Harrison drew up the papers. My parents, faced with the alternative of criminal prosecution, signed everything. The house sale would net about $80,000 after the mortgage. The cars another $30,000. Mom's jewelry, $20,000. It was a fraction of what they'd stolen, but it was something. They entered treatment programs. Dad for gambling addiction, Mom for shopping addiction. I received reports, but didn't visit. Neither did Emma. 6 months later, I got a call from Mom. Justin, it's me. I know I'm not supposed to contact you, but I wanted you to know I'm 90 days clean. No shopping, no spending beyond necessities. Good for you, I said, not sure how to feel. I'm working 2 jobs. Dental hygienist during the day, grocery store at night. Half goes to you and Emma, like we agreed. I know. I get the deposits. It's not enough. It'll never be enough. But I want you to know I'm trying. Okay. Your father is doing better too. He's been gambling free for 4 months. He's working construction with one of Grandpa's friends and attending meetings every night. That's good. Justin, I know you may never forgive us. I understand that. But I want you to know that losing you and Emma was the wake-up call we needed. We were sick, and we made you pay for our sickness. That's unforgivable. Yeah, I agreed. It is. But we're trying to be better, to be the parents we should have been. It's too late for that, Mom. I'm not a kid anymore. Neither is Emma. We had to grow up fast because you failed us. I know. God, I know. I love you. Both of you. I know I didn't show it, but I do. You loved gambling and shopping more. No, I loved the high they gave me, the escape from feeling like a failure. But that's not your problem. It was never your problem, and we made it your problem. That's on us. I have to go, I said. Of course. Justin, thank you for not pressing charges. Thank you for giving us a chance to make some small restitution. Don't thank me. Thank yourself by staying clean. I hung up and sat in my small apartment, the one I shared with 2 roommates, because even with Grandpa's help, I was years behind where I should have been financially. But I was in graduate school now, something the student loans would have made impossible. I was building a future, even if it wasn't the one I should have had. Emma thrived at art school. Without the weight of our parents' lies, she blossomed into a talented artist. Her work often dealt with themes of betrayal and recovery, beauty from ashes. She didn't talk about our parents, but they appeared in her art, dark shadows giving way to light. A year passed. Then, too, the deposits came regularly, Small amounts that barely made a dent in what was owed but proved they were trying. I heard updates through Grandpa. They lived in a small apartment now, worked multiple jobs, attended their meetings. They were model participants in their recovery programs. They want to see you, Grandpa told me one day. Both of you. It's been 2 years. No, Emma said immediately. I was less certain. What do you think? I think they're different people now, Grandpa said carefully. Not perfect, not trustworthy, but different. Whether that matters is up to you. I thought about it for weeks. The anger had faded to a dull ache, the betrayal scarred over. I was 23 now, in my second year of business school, working toward the MBA I should have already had. The path was different than planned, harder, but it was mine. I'll meet Dad, I decided. Once. In public. To see. We met at the same coffee shop where they'd confessed everything. He looked older, grayer, worn down by manual labor and the weight of his choices. But his eyes were clear, not the glazed look of someone chasing the next bet. You look good, he said. Graduate school suits me. I'm glad. Grandpa says you're doing well. I am. Despite everything. Because of everything, maybe. You're stronger than you would have been. That's not your credit to take, Dad. I'm strong because I had to be. Not because you made me strong. Fair enough. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. I'm sorry, he said finally. I know it doesn't mean anything, doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. I was a terrible father. I stole from my own children to feed my sickness. There's no excuse for that. No, there isn't. The program talks about making amends, but some things can't be made right. I can't give you back those years of struggle. I can't undo the debt, the stress, the betrayal. All I can do is stay clean and keep paying what little I can. Why? I asked. Why did you do it? Really? He thought for a long moment. I was drowning in my own failures. The business venture, the image I'd built of myself as a successful man. When it started crumbling, I panicked. The gambling was supposed to fix it, but it became its own monster. Every loss made me more desperate, more convinced the next bet would be the big win. And your mother and I, we fed each other's sickness, enabled each other. You could have asked for help. From who? My father-in-law, who already thought I wasn't good enough for his daughter? My son who looked up to me. I was supposed to be the provider, the success. Admitting failure felt worse than stealing. It wasn't worse. It was just easier. Yes, he agreed. It was easier, until it destroyed everything. Did you ever think about what it was doing to us? Really think about it. Every day. But thinking and stopping are different things. The shame made me gamble more, to escape the feeling. It was a cycle I couldn't break. Until you had to. Until I lost everything that mattered. You, Emma. Your mother's trust. Your grandfather's respect. The money was just money. Losing my family was the real consequence. We were never really a family, Dad. We were people playing roles while you and Mom fed your addictions. You're right, but I want you to know, I'm trying to be the man I should have been, even if it's too late for us. It is too late, I confirmed. I'll never trust you again. Neither will Emma. I know, but I'm glad you're clean. For your sake, not mine. Can I ask about Emma? How is she? She's brilliant, talented, strong. No thanks to you. Will she ever talk to me? I doubt it. She was younger, more vulnerable. She idolized you and you destroyed that. She deals with it through her art now. I saw one of her exhibitions. Online. The piece about shadows and light. You stay away from her shows, I said sharply. You have no right. I know. I didn't go. I just saw the review online. She's incredible. She is. And she did it without you. We finished our coffee in silence. As I stood to leave, he spoke once more. Justin, every month when I send that payment, small as it is, I think about what that money really represents, not restitution, because nothing can restore what we took, but proof that I'm trying to be better, that I learned something from losing you. Good for you, I said and left. I didn't see him again for another year. Mom reached out occasionally, respecting when I didn't respond, persistent when I did. She was different, the manic energy replaced by something quieter, more genuine, but the trust was gone, and without trust, what was left? Emma graduated with honors, her thesis exhibition drawing attention from galleries. One piece, titled The Empty Fund, was a glass piggy bank filled with IOUs. It sold for $10,000. She donated half to a scholarship fund for students whose parents had financially betrayed them. Apparently, we weren't as unique as we'd thought. There are dozens of us, she told me after meeting other recipients. Parents who stole college funds for gambling, drugs, affairs, failed businesses. It's an epidemic no one talks about. Because it's shameful, I said. Because we're ashamed. But we didn't do anything wrong. They did. She started a support group online. Within months, it had hundreds of members. Stories poured in from around the world. Parents who had stolen hundreds, thousands, millions from their children's futures. The patterns were always the same. Addiction, entitlement, justification, discovery, devastation. We should write a book, Emma suggested one day. About what? How to survive parental financial betrayal. Exactly that. We did. It took a year, interviewing dozens of victims, talking to lawyers, therapists, financial advisors. The book, Stolen Futures, When Parents Betray Their Children's Trust, became a bestseller. The dedication read, "To Grandpa Richard, who showed us that real love protects rather than plunders." Mom sent a letter after the book came out. I read it, every word. Seeing our story, among so many others, doesn't make what we did less horrible, but it helps me understand we weren't uniquely evil. We were ordinarily selfish, ordinarily sick, ordinarily weak. That's almost worse. Your father cried when he read it. Real tears, not the manipulative kind he used to use. We're proud of you for turning our failure into something that helps others. We have no right to be proud, but we are. Love, Mom. I didn't respond, but I kept the letter. The book's success led to speaking engagements. Emma and I traveled to universities, talking to parents and students about financial boundaries, recognizing signs of parental financial abuse, and recovery from betrayal. It was healing, in a way, to transform our trauma into education. At one university, a young man approached me after the talk. "My parents did the same thing," he said. $400,000 from my grandmother's education trust. I'm working 3 jobs to pay for community college. I'm sorry, I said, meaning it. Did you ever forgive them? No, but I forgave myself for not seeing it sooner, for trusting them. That's the forgiveness that matters. Does it get easier? Different. The anger fades. The hurt scars over. You build a life despite them, not because of them. And eventually, that life becomes more important than the one they stole. Your parents, are they still? Still in recovery, still working, still paying restitution. $500 a month between them. At that rate, they'll be paying until they die and still not cover what they took. But they're trying. They're trying. Whether that matters is a personal decision. For me, their effort doesn't erase their choices, but I'm glad they're not destroying anyone else. 5 years after the graduation dinner revelation, I stood in my own office. I'd started a financial consulting firm specializing in helping families recover from internal fraud. It was successful, meaningful work. Emma ran the nonprofit arm, providing free services to those who couldn't afford help. Grandpa visited often, proud of what we'd built from the ashes of our parents' betrayal. "You did it," he said one day, looking at the wall of thank you letters from clients we'd helped. We survived. I corrected. You did more than survive. You transformed poison into medicine. We had help. You, Grandma. Each other. Your parents want to come to Emma's wedding, he said suddenly. Emma was getting married in 3 months to a wonderful man who understood her history and loved her not despite it, but because of how she'd overcome it. What does Emma say? She says no, but she's wavering. 5 years of sobriety, consistent payments, genuine change. She's considering letting them attend, but not participate. It's her choice. What would you do? I don't know. Weddings are about the future, not the past. But the past has a way of casting shadows. They've changed, Justin. I monitor their accounts, their meetings. They haven't gambled or overspent in 5 years. They live simply, work hard, attend therapy. They're different people. Different people who stole our futures. Yes, but also people who learned from that theft, who paid consequences and accepted them. Isn't redemption possible? Redemption isn't my job to grant, Grandpa. They can be redeemed without my forgiveness. Can they? Or does redemption require the forgiveness of those we've wronged? I didn't have an answer. Emma ultimately decided to allow them to attend the wedding as guests, not family. They sat in the back, dressed simply, watching their daughter marry, without them walking her down the aisle, a role Grandpa filled. They left immediately after the ceremony, respecting the boundary. How was it? I asked Emma at the reception. Strange. They looked like strangers who resembled my parents. Older, smaller, dimmer, like shadows of who they were. Regret. About letting them come? No. About them not being the parents who deserved to be there? Always. 2 months after the wedding, Dad had a heart attack. Minor but scary. I went to the hospital. Not sure why. You came, he said, surprised. I don't know why. I do. Despite everything, some part of you still sees me as your father. The man who was supposed to be my father, not the man who was. Fair enough. We sat quietly, the beeping of machines filling the silence. I've been thinking about death, he said. What I'd leave behind. The answer is nothing good. Debt, shame, 2 children who hate me. I don't hate you, Dad. I nothing you mostly. Sometimes I pity you. That's worse than hate. Maybe, but it's what's left after hate burns out. Your mother and I have been discussing something. We want to leave you and Emma everything when we die. It won't be much, but our life insurance policies, the little we've saved, it would go to you. Keep your money. We don't want it. It's not about want. It's about the only thing we can give you now. A small return on what we stole. You can't buy forgiveness, Dad. Not even with your death. We're not trying to buy anything. We're trying to give the only thing we have left. Give it to charity. To Emma's scholarship fund. To anyone but us. You really won't let us do anything right, will you? You had 21 years to do right by us. You chose wrong every time. This doesn't balance that scale. He nodded, looking older than his 58 years. I know. Why did you really ask me here? To tell you something. In therapy, they talk about the root of addiction. Mine wasn't really about money or success. It was about proving I was worth your grandfather's respect. I never felt good enough for your mother, for her family's wealth and status. The gambling was trying to prove I could be rich too, successful too. Instead, I proved their worst assumptions about me. You created a self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes, and I dragged you all down with me. That's the part one can't forgive myself for. Good. You shouldn't forgive yourself. Some things are unforgivable. You're harsh. I'm honest. You taught me the cost of lies. I did, didn't I? The worst kind of education. But effective. I left shortly after. He recovered, went back to work, continued his payments. Mom did the same. They were consistent, reliable in their restitution if nothing else. Emma had her first child a year later, a daughter she named Hope. Will you tell her about them? I asked, meaning our parents. When she's older, as a cautionary tale, but they'll never meet her. That's my boundary. They'll want to. They wanted a lot of things. They chose gambling and shopping instead. Choices have consequences. Forever. Some consequences are forever, Justin. A stolen childhood doesn't get returned. A broken trust doesn't fully mend. They're living with their consequences. We're living with ours. Hope grew up knowing only love, security, and truth. Emma was a wonderful mother, present in ways ours never was. Her husband, David, was stable, trustworthy, the opposite of our father. I met Sarah at a financial crimes conference. She was a prosecutor specializing in family fraud cases. She understood my history, my work, my boundaries. We married 2 years later in a small ceremony. My parents weren't invited. Any regrets? Sarah asked on our honeymoon. About not inviting them? No. They're strangers who share my DNA. Nothing more. That's sad. It's honest. They had every opportunity to be parents. They chose to be thieves instead. People can change. They have changed, but change doesn't erase consequences. They're living better lives now, but those lives don't include us. That's the price of their choices. Sarah got pregnant a year later, a son we named Richard after Grandpa. Will you tell him about them? Sarah asked, echoing Emma's earlier question. When he's old enough to understand, but like Hope, he'll never meet them. Never. They stole from their children. I won't give them the chance to steal from their grandchildren, even if it's just stealing moments, memories, trust. You don't think they've learned? I think they've learned to manage their addictions. But the fundamental selfishness that let them steal from us, I don't trust that it's gone. I won't risk my son to find out. Grandpa died when Richard was 2, 90 years old, peaceful in his sleep. The funeral was massive, hundreds of people whose lives he'd touched. My parents came, sitting in the back, leaving before the reception. They looked diminished, gray, worn. That was kind, Sarah observed, letting them say goodbye. It wasn't for them. It was for Grandpa. He never stopped hoping we'd reconcile. But you won't. I can't. Some bridges, once burned, don't rebuild. Grandpa left us his estate, split between Emma and me. It was substantial, more than enough to secure our children's futures. He left our parents nothing, a final statement on their betrayal. He never forgave us. Mom said when the will was read, even after all these years, all our changes. Forgiveness was never owed to you, the lawyer said, surprisingly sharp. Mr. Torres was clear. His estate would go to family who could be trusted with it. The payments continued, $500 a month, every month, year after year. By the time I was 35, they'd paid back nearly $50,000, a fraction of what they'd stolen, but proof of consistency they'd never shown as parents. Emma's art evolved, moving from darkness to light. Her exhibitions sold out, collectors drawn to the transformation depicted in her work. She had 2 more children, all growing up secure in ways we never were. Do you think we're overcorrecting? She asked once. Being too protective because we weren't protected? Maybe, but I'd rather err on the side of too much security than too little. Our kids will never understand struggle the way we did. Good. That struggle wasn't noble. It was unnecessary trauma caused by selfish parents. But it made us strong. We were always strong, Emma. We just had to discover it the hard way. My business expanded, helping thousands of families recover from internal fraud. The patterns were always the same. Parents who felt entitled to their children's resources. Children who felt guilty for demanding justice. The confusion of love and theft coexisting in the same relationship. How do you do it? One client asked. How do you move forward when the people who were supposed to protect you were the ones who hurt you? You accept that they were never the people they were supposed to be, I said. You mourn the parents you should have had, then build a life without them. You create your own family, chosen and biological, who understand trust. And you never, ever feel guilty for protecting yourself from people who proved they can't be trusted. Even if they change. Change doesn't entitle them to access to you. They can be better people elsewhere. With other people, your life is not their redemption story. Mom wrote me a letter on my 40th birthday. Dear Justin, 18 years have passed since that graduation dinner. 18 years of payments, sobriety, therapy, and work. I know it doesn't undo what we did. Nothing could. But I want you to know who we've become in these years. Your father volunteers at a gambling addiction center, sponsoring young men who remind him of himself. He's saved several from the path he took. He's been clean for 15 years. I work with families in financial crisis, teaching budgeting and restraint. The irony isn't lost on me that I'm teaching what I failed to practice. But maybe that makes me a better teacher. We live simply. A one-bedroom apartment, used cars, no luxuries. Every extra penny goes to restitution. We'll die still owing you, but we'll die trying to repay. We know about Richard and Emma's children through others. We're grandparents who will never know our grandchildren. That's justice, but it hurts. We accept the hurt as consequence. I don't ask for forgiveness. I don't ask for reconciliation. I just wanted you to know that the people who stole from you no longer exist. We killed them with accountability and consequence. The people we are now would never hurt you. But we understand if that doesn't matter. We stole more than money. We stole trust, security, and the parents you deserved. Those can't be repaid. I love you. I've always loved you. I just loved my sickness more for too long. Now, clean and clear-eyed, I can see what we lost. You were the real treasure, and we traded you for temporary highs. Live well. Be the parent we weren't. Love Richard the way we should have loved you. Forever sorry, Mom. I kept the letter but didn't respond. Some words, even true ones, don't require answers. Would you want to know? Sarah asked, if Richard's future children never wanted to see him? That's different. Richard would have to do something unforgivable first. People make mistakes. Stealing your children's future isn't a mistake. It's a choice. Hundreds of choices over years. Each withdraw a decision to value yourself over your child. That's not a mistake. It's a character revelation. You're still angry. No. Anger requires energy I won't give them. I'm indifferent. They're cautionary tales, not parents. Richard asked about them. He saw Mom in your phone contacts. What did you tell him? That some people aren't safe to know, even if they're family. Good answer. He'll want to know more eventually. Then we'll tell him the truth, age-appropriately, that his grandparents chose addiction over parenthood, theft over trust, that they've changed, but change doesn't erase consequences, that we protect him from them not out of spite, but out of love. He might want to meet them anyway, when he's older. That'll be his choice, but not until he's old enough to understand what they are and what they did. You'll let him. When he's an adult, if he chooses to know them, that's his risk to take, but not while he's under my protection. Richard grew curious, as children do. By 10, he knew there were grandparents he'd never met. By 15, he knew why. They stole from you? He asked, incredulous. Everything meant for my education. Almost $1 million by the time you factor in interest and opportunity cost. And you've never forgiven them? Forgiveness would require rebuilding trust. They destroyed that foundation. You can't build on ruins. But they've been paying you back. $500 a month for 20 years. They've repaid maybe $70,000 of the $850,000 they stole, not counting Emma's money. That's something. It's proof they're trying, but trying doesn't undo damage. You're hard on them. I'm protective of us. There's a difference. What if I wanted to meet them? When you're 18, that's your choice. But understand, they're master manipulators who convinced themselves stealing from their children was acceptable. Don't underestimate their ability to justify themselves. He didn't ask again for years. Emma's daughter Hope, now 17, was more direct. I want to meet them, she announced at a family dinner. Why? Emma asked calmly. To understand. To see the people who created you, but couldn't raise you properly. It's like studying history. They're not a museum exhibit. Hope. They're real people who did real damage. But they're also my grandparents. Biologically. Nothing more. That's something. It's DNA. It's not relationship, trust, or love. Those they forfeited. Maybe for you, but not for me. They never betrayed me. Because we never gave them the chance. I pointed out. We protected you from them. Maybe I don't want protection. Maybe I want knowledge. Emma and I exchanged glances. We'd known this day would come. When you're 18, Emma said, if you still want to meet them, we won't stop you. But we won't facilitate it either. And you should know, they're different from the grandparents your friends have. They're not warm, loving people who made mistakes. They're addicts who stole their children's futures to fund their addictions. You make them sound like monsters. Not monsters. Humans who chose themselves over their children repeatedly for years. That's not monstrous. It's just selfish. Extremely, destructively selfish. I still want to meet them. Then you will. But go in with eyes open. They've had 23 years to craft their narrative of redemption. It'll sound convincing. It might even be partly true. But remember what they did when they had power over vulnerable people. That's who they really are. Hope met them 6 months after her 18th birthday. Emma didn't try to stop her, but didn't make it easy either. Hope had to reach out herself, arrange the meeting herself. Go alone. She came back thoughtful. They're so ordinary, she said. I expected dramatic villains. They're just sad. Older people living with consequences. What did they say? Emma asked. They cried a lot. Apologized. Showed me pictures of you as kids. Talked about their recovery, their restitution payments, their regrets. And I felt sorry for them. But I also understood why you keep them away. They're like broken appliances that got repaired, but you can never quite trust to work properly again. That's apt, I said. They asked about you, both of you, and about Richard and Emma's other kids. What did you tell them? Nothing. It's not my information to share. Good boundaries. Emma approved. Will you see them again? I asked. Maybe. Probably not. They're strangers with familiar faces. There's no connection beyond curiosity, and that's been satisfied. They must have been disappointed. They were grateful I came at all. The bar is pretty low for them. As it should be, Emma said. Hope never saw them again. Richard, when he turned 18, chose not to meet them at all. I trust your judgment, he told me. If you've kept them away for 25 years, you had good reason. It's still your choice. My choice is to trust my parents who've never let me down over grandparents who let everyone down. You might regret not knowing them. I might, but I'd regret more giving them the chance to disappoint me too. My parents continued their payments, their sobriety, their separate lives. We heard updates, occasionally, through mutual acquaintances. They were model recovery citizens, helping others, living proof that people could change. But change and reconciliation aren't synonymous. They'd changed into better people, but not into our people. That bridge remained burned, a permanent reminder of choices and consequences. Dad died at 72. Another heart attack. This one fatal. Mom called to tell me. I thought you should know, she said simply. Thank you for telling me. The funeral is Thursday. You're not expected to come. We won't. I know. Justin, he never stopped hoping you'd forgive him. Then he died disappointed. Yes, he did. But he also died sober, helping others, trying to be better. That's something. It is. Goodbye, Mom. Goodbye, Justin. I didn't go to the funeral. Neither did Emma. We heard it was small, mostly people from his recovery program. He'd been a sponsor to dozens over the years, saving them from his fate. That was his redemption, with other people's children since he'd failed his own. Mom lived another 8 years. The payments continued until she died, a final total of around $90,000 repaid over 31 years. She left us her meager estate, which we donated to addiction recovery programs. Feel anything? Emma asked after Mom's funeral, which we also didn't attend. Relief, maybe, that it's over, that we never gave in to false reconciliation. No regrets. About protecting ourselves and our children from people who proved they couldn't be trusted? Never. They tried to make amends. They did, and they lived with the consequence that some things can't be amended. Some betrayals are too deep, too deliberate, too destructive to overcome. That's sad. It is, but it's also just. They stole our childhoods, our education, our trust. Living without us was the minimum consequence. Do you think they suffered? I think they learned what they taught us. That actions have consequences, that trust once broken doesn't automatically rebuild, that love isn't enough when it comes after betrayal. Hard lessons, the hardest, but they chose the curriculum when they chose to steal from us. We stood together at their gravesites, not mourning parents, but acknowledging the end of a long, painful chapter. They were buried with small headstones we paid for, listing only their names and dates. No beloved parents or devoted family. Just facts, like their final payments. Accurate, but minimal. Our kids will never understand this, Emma said. Good. Understanding this means experiencing betrayal by those who should protect you. I'm glad they'll never understand. We broke the cycle. We did, not by forgiving them, but by refusing to repeat their patterns. By choosing our children over ourselves every day. Think they'd be proud? I think they'd claim to be, but pride from thieves means nothing. Even reformed thieves, especially reformed thieves, they know what they stole can't be returned. I'm 60 now. Richard is grown, married, with children of his own. Emma's children are all successful, kind, trustworthy people. We built the family we should have had from the ashes of the one we were given. The graduation dinner that revealed everything feels like a lifetime ago. In many ways, it was. That 21-year-old who discovered his parents' betrayal is gone, replaced by a man who understands that family is action, not blood. That trust is earned, not owed. That consequences aren't cruelty but justice.